Hello guys, welcome to my humble YouTube channel where I bring you fanfiction that will brighten your days. Before we start, a subscribe is greatly appreciated, and don't forget to leave a like and ring the bell icon so you won't miss exciting new fanfiction stories. What if Hajime discovered other exit of Great Orcus Labyrinth? By JagaImo001. Chapter 5. Hylia Kingdom, Kaori. A little boy ran toward the hero party while yelling out Kaori's name. Welcome back, Kaori. It's nice to see you again. When you're not here, everything seems boring. You didn't get hurt? Are you okay? Kaori can see a dog tail wagging behind this boy for some reason, even though he's human. Of course, not only Kaori, the rest of the students were also back from their excursion. Some were annoyed that this kid completely ignored their existence. Prince Lundel, we're back. It's nice to see you too, Kaori said with an elegant bow while clutching the hem of her robe. Lundel SB Hylia was the prince of Hylia Kingdom. A 10-year-old boy with blonde hair and blue eyes. He's infatuated with Kaori the day they were summoned, but he's still a little kid, so Kaori thought of him that he'd just grown attached to her. She can't imagine that his feeling ran deeper than that. As a result, she treat him like her own little brother. You know, fighting doesn't suit you, and there's no need for you to fight. In my power I can get you a safer place to work with. How about it? Lundel says with a bright smile. For example. Kaori tilted her head slightly. That cute reaction makes Lundel blushed. Kaori thought that, he's like a dog hungry for attention from his owner. Well. How about being my personal maid? Lundel scratched his red cheek when he said that. Thank you for your concern, but I'm a priest, your highness, so. Then, how about working on the hospital? There's no need for you to expose yourself in danger and fight at the front line in the labyrinth. The kingdom had a state-run hospital in the capital. It was located right next to the palace. It was quite obvious that he wasn't really worried about Kaori's safety. Lundel merely wanted to keep her close to him. Unfortunately, Kaori was too dense to realize that. But pants Lundel. Only on the front line I can heal the injured right away. Thank you for being worried about me, but I'm going to keep fighting, Kaori says while bowing apologetically. Lundel pouted when he didn't manage to convince Kaori no matter what. Then in that timing that the idiot bundle of justice joined in their conversation and poured oil on the flame. Don't worry, your highness. As Kaori's childhood friend, I won't let any harm get into her. I promise that I will protect her in any situation, Kuki said with a dazzling smile. Unfortunately, that only makes that prince more worried. Lundel glared at Kuki that says, don't lay a finger on my woman as long as I'm around. I won't let anyone else have Kaori, the hero and the healer. They really seem like a dream couple. Lundel's glare grew stern. He treated Kuki as his sworn enemy. To his childish mind, he thought that these two were already lovers. How can you call yourself a man if you have to bring Kaori to such dangerous place? I won't lose, I'll show you I'm better man than you. Lundel bit his lips and his fists were clutched tightly. Kaori stared at Lundel in confusion. Kuki stared at him blankly, and Shizuku, who was watching the scene to unfold, just sighed at her dense friends. Lundel. You can't be like that in front of everyone, you know? Hearing that voice that was very familiar, Lundel turned around and saw the princess of this kingdom, Liliana SB Hylia. Liliana was a beautiful girl, has a blonde hair and blue eyes. She's only 14, yet she's emanating an aura fitting for a queen. Her personality added with her appearance makes her popular throughout the whole kingdom. Despite her position, she's kind with common folks, maids, and servant, which makes her unforgettable. Oni-sama, but. No buts. They're working so hard for our sake, but you're ignoring their resolve to fight and try and keep Kaori here. Don't you think that you're being immature? But, Lundel. Oh. I just remember that I have to do something, bye. Lundel says while dashing off as fast as he could. Kaori. Kuki, I'm sorry for my brother's attitude, he must have caused you great troubles. Liliana bowed deeply as she apologized to them. Her long blonde hair fell gracefully over her shoulders. It's fine really, you don't have to apologize, Lily. Kaori says while she urged Liliana to raise her head. Yeah, it's no problem at all, Lily. I don't know why's he like that to me, but if I did something that he didn't like I should be apologizing, Kuki said with a warm smile. Liliana actually didn't like the idea of asking a group of children who were unrelated to their circumstances to fight for their war. That's why she always did her best to support the hero party for everything they need. She became friendly with them not long after the student gets summoned. She's particularly close with Kaori and Shizuku, and not long after they drop the formalities and calling each other by nicknames. That's unnecessary, Kuki. Lundell is wild sometimes. Anyway, welcome back everyone. Good work out there. I've read all of the reports sent by Meld, and that's quite impressive. Liliana smiled warmly at them. Though they're used to seeing beauties like Kaori and Shizuku in their class, they were still flustered by Liliana's charm and an aura of a royalty. Hayama's gang was already beet red, and some of the girls are blushing slightly. They would never encounter a person like this on their previous lives, which make things more overwhelming. It's quite strange that Kaori and Shizuku could normally talk with her like she's just one of their friend. Thanks, Lily. Your smile alone blow away all of our exhaustion. I'm happy to see you doing well. Kuki's cliché line like this combined with his dazzling smile was what make all of the girls on school fall for him, but he's dense to notice the after effect of his own actions. Since she's a princess, she already receives such compliments and has gotten used to it. Liliana were smart enough to discern one person's intention behind their words and attitude toward her. Which was why she knows that Kuki sincerely meant every single word he says. She doesn't receive such sincere compliments except from her own family, so she wasn't used to a wholeheartedly praise. She blushed and tried to think of a way to reply. It's because of her expression like this makes her popular. Shizuku just sighed behind Kuki. It's because she already know him for too long that she understood even when someone told him, he wouldn't get it. Thank you, Lily, for everything you done for us. Since you already read the reports Meld sent, you must came here to welcome him, right? Liliana's composure returned and directed her gaze at Shizuku. Yes. I'm really glad he's still alive. How about you, Kaori? Are you happy now seeing him again? Liliana turned to Kaori with a teasing grin, which makes Kaori blushed. Yeah, I'm happy. Although, Kaori looked behind her and saw Hajime, who was walking with you, holding each other's hand. When Hajime smelled the food on the bustling street, he left the carriage with you without asking anyone. Kuki and the others gets confused on Hajime's sudden action, but they realize it when he approaches one of the street vendor. Kaori really want to join them, but Shizuku stop her before she even has a chance to ask them. Hajime walked past them without greeting or even gazing up on Liliana like he owned the place, which made the guards angry and stopped him from his tracks. Only the high officials such as nobles, royalty, and the church were aware of Hajime's appearance yet. That's why none of the guards or servants will be able to recognize him now, which was why Liliana picked them up for clarification. She normally welcomed the hero party, so this ain't really new for everyone. Hey you. Who do you think you are, ignoring her highness like that, AAA? The woman standing behind Liliana, which was one her personal guards, pointed her sword against Hajime. He keeps chewing while holding a pseudo hot dog on his left hand and looking at this girl like she's just a fly. You dare. That kind of attitude is. Before she can even finish her sentence, Liliana approached her to calm her down. Mama. Calm down for now. He's actually who we're waiting for. So be calm and inform to other guards about this, okay? You mean ease. I apologize for the bother. As you wish, your highness. The woman bowed to Hajime and Liliana before she drew near to the guards, who was eyeing Hajime dangerously, and explained the situation. You're Nagumo-san, right? Welcome back. You've changed a lot. If Meld hasn't informed me beforehand, I won't be able to recognize you at all. Liliana smiled warmly on Hajime. The fact that tears were gathering on the corner of her eyes expressed how happy she was knowing her friend's crush was still alive. That expression was what makes Liliana memorable. There's no way for someone who have seen her even once would be able to forget her. Who are you? Hajime was just eating while Liliana, the princess, were talking to him happily. He swallowed his food and gave his unexpected reply nonchalantly. Liliana's smile froze, and most of the students was dumbfounded by Hajime's reply. Liliana wasn't used being forgotten. Not only she's a royalty, her personality and appearance was what makes her memorable. What do you mean, who she is? She's the princess, you know, Nagumo. Kuki glared at Hajime. Liliana laughed awkwardly on Hajime's attitude that she hasn't seen before. Actually, Liliana had already talked or interviewed everyone during their stay here on the capital. She asked them their opinions regarding their mission or their needs so that they can provide it for them. Her conversation with Hajime was one of many she can't forget. Instead of Liliana, he's the one asking a lot of questions regarding this world, which at the end she understood. that Hajime was the most mature among them. His demise also brings sadness to her, mostly because she can't bear the guilt building up inside her, and when she saw Kaori, who seems to be acting normal, she also tried not to notice her grief and act nicely. It's fine, Kuki, aha aha ha. It seemed like I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll reintroduce myself. I'm the princess of Hylai Kingdom. Liliana SB Hylai. Liliana clutched the hem of her dress and bowed elegantly. Kuki and the others already seen it many times, but still their heart skipped a beat on Liliana's elegance. Surely even Hajime should. Ah. You're a princess. Atsukari. Hajime hit his palm with his fist pawn like he just remembered something. You beside him were still eating while looking on Liliana's troubled expression. Hajime thought that he might be able to stack up information from the princess, but he can't risk getting caught by God's followers. So for starters he'll act as friendly, lol, as possible. Aha ha ha. You seem to be doing well. I can't bear to see Kaori sad, you know, and I'm glad you two reunited. Liliana's composure didn't crumble in front of Hajime, who were looking at her with cold eyes with crossed out arms. His rudeness annoyed all of the guard. Though they are already aware of this person's identity, they still won't tolerate that kind of attitude toward the princess. Plus he's the rumored incompetent, they pretty much have an idea what his worth was. Sai, just tell me what you want already. I still have lots of stuffs to do tomorrow, so if you'll excuse me I'll take my leave. Hajime turned on his heel and continued walking, but before he can even take a step Kaori clung to his left arm and pleaded. Hajime-kun. Don't act rudely in front of Lily. She did a lot for us, you know. Kaori puffed out her cheeks and looked at Hajime's cold eyes. Nagumo. Have you already forgotten that she's one of our benefactor after arriving on this world? The least you can do is be polite to her. Kuki glared at Hajime while he unconsciously tried to peel off Kaori from his arm. It looks like Kuki doesn't like Kaori touching other man. Shizuku behind them, who were massaging her temple, approached Liliana and explained all of her thoughts regarding Hajime. Lily. I'm sorry about Nagumo-kun. He's like that when we got reunited, and he always refused to talk everything what happened to him, so we really don't have any idea what he's gone through to become like that. Shizuku clasped Liliana's shoulder while looking at the direction of Kuki, who was reprimanding Hajime. It's fine really. Seeing that he lost an arm and an eye. Looks like he suffered a lot, and even indirectly. That's hardly our fault, so I can't really blame him if he's like that to me. Liliana looked sadly at Hajime. Hajime ignored Kuki and talked to Liliana regardless of the hateful stare directed to him. Tell me already. What do you want? Hajime says while yawning. He can hear the guards whispering to each other and looking at him disgustingly. Even though they're already aware that Hajime was one of the god's apostle, they still thought that he's the same worthless guy before. His rudeness only added heat to their hatred. Oh. Nothing really. I'm here to inform you that my father wants to talk with you the day after Aiko-sama's arrival. Liliana talked to Hajime without directly looking at his cold eyes. Is that all? Welp, I'm gonna go now. I'll use the same room, okay. See ya. Before Hajime could turn around, suddenly something warm pressed on his back, and found himself being hugged from behind. He gets surprised when he looked behind to see who was hugging him while whispering, I'm so glad. Repeatedly, it was a beautiful woman with a shoulder-length chestnut-colored hair, Sonobe Yuka. She was hugging him tightly with all her strength as if he will vanish if she let go of him. Behind her was the stay-home group, which consists of Nana Miyazaki, Teiko Sugawara, Atsushi Tamai, Akita Nomura, and Noboru Eikawa. It looks like they rushed here as soon as they heard about their arrival. Everyone was here to welcome the whole party, of course, but their main reason was to see their classmates who should have died, still alive. The stay-home group was the group of students who have given up after Hajime's presumed death and decided not to fight anymore. Thanks to Aiko's influence, they weren't forced to fight or kicked out of the palace, but since they weren't functioning as intended, most of the nobles were treating them as freeloaders. Some were also targeting the girls as wife candidate, so they can't really live peacefully even away from the front line. After learning Hajime's survival, everyone feels like a huge weight lifted off their chest. Liliana was the one who brought them the news regarding Hajime, and their reaction were priceless, especially Yuka, who started crying in relief and hugged Liliana tightly. Yuka was one of the most affected from that incident. She hardly ever talked to anyone ever since. Even her best friend starts worrying about her condition, so looking at her actions now spoke truly what she feels right now. I'm sorry. IIW it's, you. After of what it feels like eternity for Yuka, she snapped back to reality and let go of Hajime. Red as a tomato, she tried to explain herself from everyone but she can't, and only ended up fidgeting restlessly. Hajime and Yu took a glance at her and left without saying anything. Yuka looked sadly on his back until he's nowhere to be seen. She seems like a bother, for him was what she saw on his eyes. Yukachi, that was a bold move, you know. He. Nana says in teasing tone. This was on my mind for a while now. As I thought, you have a crush on Nagu. Teiko followed up while smiling mischievously. You're wrong. I'm just glad that he's fine. That's all. Yuka cut off Nana before she could finish her sentence, but it seems she acted too late. Yuka-chan. What was that just now? Kaori grasped Yuka's shoulder with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. No. You got it all wrong. I'm just happy you know. Weren't you the same? Yuka could see something behind Kaori. Something nobody hasn't seen before from this girl that was overflowing with an aura of kindness. Sigh, I understand you. Even back then I want hug him. But that girl. Sigh anyway. Yuka-chan, everyone were back. Kaori's emotions were all over the place, hatred, jealousy, happiness, and confusion was all she felt from recalling that memory. She returned to herself and greeted everyone else happily. Everyone too just remembered what they were here for, so they welcomed the party wholeheartedly. Because of Hajime's survival, they seem more lively than the last time the hero party saw them. K. Kaori. Was that really Nagumo-kun? Looks like something we're missing. Yuka talked worriedly. You thought so too, huh? If only he'll tell me what happened down there, I might be able to help him. Sigh. Kaori said sadly while looking at the direction where Hajime walked through. There you go again, spoiling him too much. Do you think he acts haughty cause you tolerate him too much, Kaori? Kuki walked near Kaori and asked. What are you saying, Kuki-kun? I didn't spoil him. You're paying too much attention to him, of course he'll think you'll be his ally no matter what. Sigh, yes. Stop that already. Let's go to our room and take some rest. It will be dinner soon, we can talk to him as much while eating together, you know. Shizuku let out an exasperated sigh and walked first than the others. Maybe I'll join you too. I need to have a word with him as well. Then, see you later. Liliana said while giving instructions to Helena, her personal maid, to prepare for the feast. Might as well throw a party to celebrate his survival. That night, everyone were lively talking with each other about their previous excursions and achievements. At first everyone in Stay Home group was in awe, but since they had the same story, the pace of their conversation was so fast that they already ran out of topic to talk about. They are still waiting for Liliana, Hajime and Yu. Suzu, who was the most enthusiastic, start telling them about Hajime happily. Suzu is so excited what kind of artifacts Nagumo-kun will make for us. Maybe, the reason he stayed on Harad was for materials. Nagayama followed up. Huh? But I didn't see him carrying anything though. Ryotaro replied in confusion. Ha. Maybe he has an artifact to hide his items. That makes sense though, where did he get that motorcycle in furs? Shizuki joined the conversation. He has an motorcycle. The motorcycle enthusiast Noboru spoke up, a quiver of excitement on his voice. Keep it down Noboru-kun. Sorry. Ina. Suzu want to ride it too. Shizu what it feels like riding it. What are you saying Suzu? It's nothing. I guess the wind was pleasant, that's all. Shizuku answered embarrassingly. Then why are you blushing at that time? You were also apologizing for some reason. Kaori asked recalling Shizuku's side that's quite rare. All of the students focus on her, waiting for an answer, but the door opened and Liliana come in with a sad expression. She let out a sigh and greeted everyone on the table. Good evening everyone. Seems like Nagumo-san won't join us today. Liliana says dejectedly. What? Why? Kaori shot out of her seat and yelled. Well, I went to his room today and asked if there's something he needs. He gave me a list of ores he needs and went back inside of his room. Of course I invited him for tonight's dinner but he refused and instead requested for his food to be brought to his room. Sigh. Liliana took a seat next to Kaori and Shizuku. All of the maids' presents already set up the table the time Liliana arrived, so the food was already in front of them but nobody was eating yet. That Nagumo. Locking himself in his room again, Kuki says angrily. Maybe he hates us. After everything we did to him, he probably doesn't think too highly of us. Yuka said while looking at her food sadly. What do you mean by that, Yuka-chan? Did any of you do something bad to Hajime-kun? Kaori spoke with a hint of anger on her tone. Everyone averted their gaze away from Kaori except Kuki and Ryotaro, who was the most clueless on what Hajime has gone through. Shizuku were just looking at Kaori with guilty-looking eyes. She's pretty much aware on Hajime's situation after all, but Shizuku can't bring that up and decided to pacify Kaori. Kaori, it's fine. That might not be the case. Then why? Why is he avoiding us? Why is he avoiding me? Why? Maybe. It has something to do on that day. Suzu said, shivering in fear after recalling that moment. You mean? That day he fell. Nagayama spoke hesitantly. The fear on his eyes were plain for everyone to see. He probably don't want to recall that memory, no one does. What? But that's pretty much his fault. Even though he's weak, he acts heroic without telling us, Nakano shouted. Yeah, it's Amanogawa who saved us. Even if he didn't do anything, all of us can get out of there alive. Saito joined. An unpleasant silence descended on the room. Everyone looked at Saito and Nakano disgustingly, but that silence atmosphere washed off suddenly when someone threw a cup of water on Nakano's face, and this time, a strange atmosphere descended. Yuka get up from her seat and threw a knife in front of Saito, which pierced his food on the table. What is your problem? He sacrificed himself for us on that time. Sobs, he saved us. He saved me. I was about to be killed by Trom soldiers at that time. I resigned to my fate and my life start flashing through my eyes. But he, the weakest among us, he saved me. Yuka starts crying, grasping the chest part of her clothes. It looks like she's enduring something painful. Her eyes was full of regrets, anger and sadness. Sobs, I can't forget him after that. He's no different from the rest of us. He's scared at that time, and yet he chose to fight. Not because he wants to save us all, but because he wants to survive. That gives me enough courage, and fought for myself too, so I could repay him someday. But I can't do anything for him. I lost my chance. Yet here you are insulting him. What is your problem? Huh? Yuka continued speaking. Her tears flowed non-stop, and her best friends approached her trying to calm her down. Yukachi is right. Nagumochi wasn't at fault. He should have survived that time, but because of our carelessness, we. Nana was also half crying. She hasn't seen Yuka to act like this, so she's pretty much surprised rather than sad. Who threw that fireball anyway? Ryotaro asked without reading the mood. It's already an unspoken rule that nobody would bring that topic again. If I recall, it's a fireball, wasn't it? Kaori spoke with anger on her tone. Kaori, we already talked about this. We all know that it's an accident. Accident happens anytime, anywhere. So you don't have to be angry about this. Kuki said, trying to console Kaori. He truly believes that it was a simple accident, cause he himself were afraid that one of his so-called comrades was a traitor. I doubt that. As simple as a fireball, losing control to it was pretty much idiotic. You should study more how magic works here, Kuki. Shizuku says angrily. She wants to investigate it before, but since she has not enough evidence, and she didn't want to raise any suspicion among her classmates and cause a problem, she abandoned the investigation halfway through. That reminds me, Hayama-kun. Did you have anything to do with that fireball? Shizuku's tone was serious, and her eyes was ready to see through all of his answers. Hayama, who was sweating suspiciously since the topic started, looked at everyone and started shaking. Everyone was looking at his direction now, but he thinks fast and decided to avoid the question. What are you saying, Yagashi-san? Why, you heard Shirasaki-san. It's a fireball. Wind is my highest affinity. What makes you think that it was me? Hayama spoke haltingly. Cold sweat traced down from his forehead. That's true, but that doesn't mean you can't cast other spells as simple as fireballs, right? Closing square bracket. Like I said. What are saying, why, Yagashi-san? Why are you suspecting me of all people? Closing square bracket. When we brought this topic when we're still in the labyrinth, Nagumo-kun looked at you like he knows something. I don't know your reasons why you did that, but you had a lot of records harassing him. So you're pretty much the suspect. Shizuku says in serious tone while releasing an intimidating aura directed at Hayama. She puts her hands on her blade, ready to take down Hayama once the truth were revealed. I admit that it was my fault we fall on that trap, but that doesn't mean I got something to do on what happened to Nagumo. Hayama's clothes was already sweaty, even though its cold and fresh breeze flow through the window. Hayama-kun. If you're telling the truth then it's fine. But I won't tolerate anyone who would insult Hajime-kun like that. I won't forgive those who belittle his sacrifices, the least you can do is to appreciate his efforts and none of you can't even do that. I hate all of you. Sobs I hate you, but the one who I hate the most. Kaori paused to control her overflowing hatred mostly directed to her classmates, but also is myself. To herself. She hates her powerlessness at that time, she can't even fulfill her promise to him. Shallow words left her nothing but empty heart, regrets were still lingering to her expression, she won't forgive herself for failing him. Shizuku consoled her best friend and glared at Hayama's group. This time though, the retarded lump of justice joined, worsening the situation. Kaori's really kind. You shouldn't burden yourself for what happened to him, remember what Meld said. He decided to do it by himself and we can't do anything about it. So stop fighting already, okay? Guys, we're comrades in arms, we can't let such a trivial stuffs ruin this team. Past is past, and now we know he's still alive, we must train harder with him to avoid accident like this, right? Kuki said with a warm smile and gentle voice, not even aware of what he had done. Yeah, we can do better this time. We already defeated that behemoth and even reached 75th floor. Kuki's right, what he lacked was training, and this time we will force him to train with us no matter what. Ryutaro says cheerfully while pumping up his fist. A painful silence descended to the dining room, they all looked at Kuki like he was a corrupt politician who had an audacity to run again. Yuka, who had dried up her tears, suddenly stand up from her seat. Her eyes were hidden with her bangs, she lifted up her right hand which holding a knife, but before she could do what she must, Liliana, who was interrupted multiple times since the beginning, yelled and attracted everyone's attention. Actually, Nagumo-san said it himself that he doesn't hate anyone. I guess. Liliana said with an awkward smile while averting her gaze away from everyone. Most of the students let out a sigh of relief, but suddenly noticed something. Liliana-san, what do you mean by that? Nana Axe, slightly titled her head in confusion. How do I say this? When I asked him if he hates everyone. He didn't face me when he said, I don't, so I didn't know what he feels on that, but the tone of his voice was, Is he really him, Kaori? Liliana, who was sweating for some reason, questioned Kaori with unsteady voice. What do you mean, Lily? Kaori, who also finished wiping her tears, questioned Liliana back. But she knows exactly what Liliana meant by that, she's also full of doubts, but because of their chat under the moonlight in Harad, she was convinced after seeing his nostalgic expressions. No, nothing. Come on now, let's eat. Clap, prepare another meal for Saito-san and someone please get some towels for Nakano-san. Now everyone, let's eat and take a rest. We have plenty of time to talk to Nagumo-san, so put aside him for now and enjoy the food. Liliana wiped her sweat and talked with everyone with a cheerful smile. The students looked at each other awkwardly, they shrugged their shoulders and decided to ignore the unpleasant atmosphere and fill their stomach. The students finished their meals and head out to their rooms without complaints. Most of them was still worried, but like Liliana said, they have plenty of time. They take a rest to their heart's content knowing one of their classmates survives, they have no idea what monster lurking inside him. This happens during students' dinner. Dark corridor that was only lightened by luminous stone, a woman wearing maid outfit was walking through carrying a tray filled with food enough for 2 people. She seems reluctant to her job for some reason and keeps mumbling to herself. Sigh, why do I have to be assigned on him again, what a pain. Her reasons behind her reluctant attitude come to light. I swear, if he looked at me again with an eyes of critic from somewhere, Grr. If only he wasn't a god's apostle, I would beat him to pulp. If only he died, my job would be less pain in the ass. Sigh, I would rather serve Kuki-sama instead of that bootlicking trash. I wish I could see his manliness today just for once so I could have a decent sleep. She was the personal maid assigned on Hajime since his first 2 weeks on the capital. Almost all of the nobles and servants loathed his existence, added with how even the church and the royals treated him fan up their aversion towards him. The maid reached the room provided for Hajime, and stand still in front of the door. She let out a few frustrated sigh and formed a lovely smile. She knocked twice and not long after someone opened the door. What she saw resulted for her mind to go blank. Ah, it's you again, huh? Long time no see. Anyway, come in before my companion finished taking a bath. Set the food on the table then you may leave, Hajime said while busily wiping his white hair with the provided towel. The guy in front of the maid was definitely a different person, she thought. She double-checked the adjacent rooms for confirmation but his words only confirms his identity. Hajime just finished taking a bath before the maid knocked through their door. He only fetched a single towel to cover up his bottom, and only left his upper body on display. His well-toned body surprised this maid to the point her mind stopped functioning. Six-pack abs, rock-hard chest, and enlarged biceps. He's overflowing with manliness. The water droplets that was flowing through his muscles only makes him hotter. Adding his glowing right eye, artificial left arm and white hair, makes him more mysterious, which piqued the maid's interest. Blushing red until her ears, she set up the table while stealing glances at Hajime's figure who was busy wiping up himself. She almost spilled some, cause of her nervousness. After the time and effort she finished the job without a problem, and faced Hajime once more with crimson cheeks, waiting for anything he orders, anything. Hajime, who wasn't as dense as the resident hero, already guessed what the maid's feels. He quietly opened up the door and gestured her to leave. He only stares at her with emotionless eyes and let out a sigh, which scares out the maid and she hurriedly tottered out of the room. Rumors about Hajime spread among the maids, which resulted on a fight among them of who would serve him next. His popularity also reached the students, which makes some envied and some were left with their curiosity. Kaori, who was the most intrigued among everyone, swore to herself that she must see it no matter what. Chapter 6. Girls Talk. Early in the morning, every students have their breakfast together. The fact that none of them were talking makes everything more awkward. They just enjoyed their food but sometimes giving some comments on this and that. It's quite unbearable. Suzu, who wasn't used to this kind of atmosphere, spoke to everyone as cheerfully as possible to drive away this weird climate. It's too bad Nagumo-kun don't join us on breakfast too, huh? But surely he's still asleep. It's Nagumo Hajime we're talking about here, am I right? Hee. Plus he has a girlfriend now. Surely he spent his night full of passion with her. Blush. Suzu blushed on embarrassment imagining Hajime's night with you. Ha ha ha, stop joking, Suzu-chan. That ain't funny, you know. Kaori looked at Suzu with lightless eyes and a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She herself can't bear to imagine that his crush doing this and that with his girlfriend. Do you think he already done it with her? Ryutaro asked, blushing a little. There's also a hint of jealousy on his eyes and his tone for some reason. But everyone also felt jealous toward Hajime and his high-class beautiful girlfriend, so no men can really blame Ryutaro about his feelings. Sigh. That's enough. Surely none of you were planning something on Nagumo-kun, plainly because of your pitiful jealousy. Yu-san is his girlfriend now, deal with it. Shizuku spoke to every man in the room, but also for her best friend as well. So the plan for today are training. Since Meld-san isn't present today, Liliana asked one of the captains to accompany us on our daily routine. She's quite skilled too, so don't you dare underestimate her, okay? Closing square bracket. Opening square bracket. Shizu. By her, you mean, Suzu acts in confusion. Ah, yes, she's a woman. Her name is Kuzuli Rail. She's also one of Lily's personal guard, so you can guarantee that she's skilled to train us. Shizuku puffed out her chest proudly. A fellow skilled woman warrior seems piqued her attention. So with that, everyone will participate. Same goes for Yuka's group. Even though you won't fight with us on the front line, it's not good if you neglect your training. Plus this will also encourage Nagumo to train with us. I don't want to drag him out of his room after all, Kuki says while looking at everyone with enthusiastic voice. He normally called every woman he meets on their given names, so no one really mind it, except for a few who weren't really fond of his ideals. So with that, let's finish our breakfast and head to training ground. Everyone agreed cheerfully. Even the stay-home group seems excited to test their skills again after a long time. On the training ground, a group of knights had gathered along with every god's apostles. The one who was eyeing everyone was a beautiful woman with straight blonde hair that is slightly split to the left side from the center. She also has tight eyebrows and lips. She's one of Meld's squad captain and also part of the Royal Guards, Kuzali Rail. Everyone, pay attention please. Since our commander was sent on a mission, Liliana-sama requested me to be your temporary trainer. I may be inferior to Meld-san, but he trained me enough to hold myself out there. That's why I'm currently a squad captain. I can guarantee you that I can teach everything that's necessary for the incoming war against demons. So rest assured and be ready, we will start immediately after a few moments. Closing square bracket. Everyone dispersed and grabbed their respective equipment. Since all the basics had been taught to everyone, they spend their time mostly to spar with each other using their real weapons. They also talked about battle plans, or sometimes doing some simulations. As for the rearguards, the magic department was with them to train their mana control and accuracy. They also do some research to shorten their chanting time. Kuzali, who has noticed something, approached Kuki's group and asks a question. Kuki-sama. Liliana-sama told me that everyone should be present, but where's Nagumo-sama? Closing square bracket. Now that you mention it, I haven't seen him even once today. Don't tell me he'll skip training again. That Nagumo, when will he learn? Maybe I should really drag him out. Kuki shouted angrily and walked briskly toward the nearest entrance. Hey Kuki, where are you going? Shizuku shouted while waving her hand. She noticed Kuki's mood and approached him regardless. She pretty much guessed the reason already, that's why she needs to step in before he makes it big deal. I will go to Nagumo's room or in the library. That guy's really annoying. I bet he spend his time studying again. Kuki gritted his teeth and clutched his fist tightly. That might be wrong. Kuki-sama. Maybe he heads toward the synergist department to train. He's a synergist after all, Kuzali said while trying to pacify Kuki. That's right Kuki. Plus even if he spends his time studying, that is quite convenient for us. As you see through his artifacts, he definitely combined our world's knowledge to everything he learned here. Closing square bracket. But still, like Meld-san always said to him, even with his non-combat job, being physically fit to fight is necessary. Relying on artifacts too much is no good. Closing square bracket. Kuki-kun. Hajime-kun will definitely find a way to fight, I know he will. And he's definitely exhausted. It's only you-san fighting by his side, so they probably hardly get any rest down there in. Oh, is that? Oh, why? Kaori looked at Kuki's direction, but at that moment she saw a familiar figure at the distance and ran toward it. Shizuku followed up beside her after seeing who it was and heaved out an exasperated sigh. All of the students also saw who it was and they find themselves entranced by its su. Kaori happily talked to her and somehow the person in question found herself getting dragged by her. Shizuku was looking apologetically toward you and silently pleaded for her to allow it. Kaori walked to the rest of the students, dragging you alongside. Her long blonde hair, porcelain skin, and crimson eyes was quite alluring. She's wearing a frilly white dress shirt and a black mini skirt, also with frills. Covering it all was a white coat with blue lining. Adorning her feet was a short pair of boots and knee-high socks. Each article of clothing was one you had sewn using the old clothes they'd found in Oscar's room combined with materials harvested from monsters. They were enchanted to grant her heightened stamina, and functioned very well as defensive gear. Perfect timing. Kuki said and rushed toward Kaori. Are you specifically? You. Right. Was Nagumo supposed to be with you? Kuki said with a hint of anger on his tone. Several people raised an eyebrow on Kuki's remark. He's acting too familiar toward you for some reason, even though they hadn't know each other very well. You also raised an eyebrow, but for a different reason. She's not aware of how Japan's cultures work, so she's really not bothered on how he acts towards her. Rather, she suddenly remembered a guy Hajime and Shizuku mentioned before. Her mood plummeted and she suddenly had an urge to kill this guy. Opening square bracket ... Why? Yu says in a cold tone. Her deadpan stare was so scary that most of the students unconsciously took a step back. Then, where is he? Kuki, who also sensed something, took a while for him to reply. Opening square bracket ... Studying. Closing square bracket. The truth was Hajime were currently investigating the whole kingdom to find the labyrinth. He has a few clues from Oscar's archives and it will definitely locate it not long after. But as expected, he didn't want to raise any suspicions, so he had no choice but to left you behind and create an alibi. You herself seems reluctant, cause Hajime asked her to distract the students so they wouldn't be a hindrance to him. She has grudges to them after all, especially the guy who plunged him into the abyss, but Hajime himself declared that do not kill them yet, or at least if it's not necessary. That Nagumo. As I thought, he's skipping training again, huh? Kuki trembled and clutched his fist tightly. Opening square bracket ... Let me guess. You're the hero, right? Yu examined Kuki from top to bottom and stated her words in a mocking tone. Oh, how did you know? Ha ha ha, this a little embarrassing. Kuki said proudly. Dense as always, he didn't even notice Yu's attitude toward him. Yu breathed an annoyed sigh, thinking, it's definitely him, how annoying, and replied. Just guessing, but also from your personality. Someone snorted, but they controlled it enough so the person in question won't notice. Shizuku hides behind Kaori while trying his best to control her giggles. It's not working though, that even Kuki noticed her weird behavior. Kuki didn't even understand what exactly you implemented, but he felt uncomfortable and decided to change the topic. I guess we haven't properly introduced ourselves, right? My name is Kuki, Amanogawa Kuki, Yoroshiku Onagai Shimas. Kuki smiled and held out his hand toward you for a handshake. Of course, you ignored him and turned her gaze to Kaori and Shizuku, indicating to introduce themselves properly. The rest of students already gathered around you and they happily give their own introductions, especially the boys. Opening square bracket ... I'm Yu. After everyone's introductions, Yu introduced herself. Her lack of intonation was quite scary, but for some reason there's immeasurable joy when she said her own name. It was like introducing your beloved pet to someone. Then Yu-chan, right. Let's get along. Suzu tottered near you and smiled happily. Opening square bracket ... Don't treat me like a child. Yu says in cold tone. Suzu backed away fearfully and bowed her head apologetically. She wants to apologize verbally, but for some reason her tongue got caught and she can't get the words out. Looking at her hands, she's trembling and her instincts was giving piercing alarm that she unconsciously can't raise her head anymore. Yu. What a beautiful name. It fits you very well. The rest of the class looked at Kuki thinking, she got a boyfriend, you know. While giving him a reproachful look. Shizuku looked in disgust at her own childhood friend, but she knows Kuki wouldn't understand even if someone explained it to him. I know. To everyone's surprise, you blushed and smiled faintly. That smile was so charming that everyone, girls, boys, men and women, were captivated. Some even thought that she'd fallen to Kuki's charm and sweet words after seeing that expression. Opening square bracket ... Hajime gave it to me. He said it means the moon. Everyone finally understood the reason behind her reaction. The students' faces were etched in surprise, some were also somewhat happy and others were filled with jealousy. Kaori in particular looked at you in jealousy, and insecurity run through her body. Hatred, regret and sadness lingered and because of so much emotion it was difficult for her to hide it, and she gets teary-eyed while looking at Yu's direction. Shizuku, who noticed her best friend's reaction, looked at her sadly. She herself knows that nobody can't do anything about it, so she gave up on consoling Kaori and decided to change the topic. So Yu-san, I know it's already too late to ask this, but what were you doing? Just wandering around. Yu snapped back to reality and replied unconcerned. Then, why not join us on our training today, or just watch or something? Maybe we can get your opinion later, that might help us. Kuki, who was also captivated by Yu's charm, snapped back to reality and smiled. There's something dark he felt, but he didn't know what it was, so he just thought that it's just his imagination. What kind of training are you doing, hero? Yu asked. Ha 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 ha. You can just call me Kuki, you know, we're comrades after all. Kuki laughed awkwardly on Yu's naming sense. Opening square bracket ... I would rather not. Yu said while giving Kuki a reproachful looks. Everyone snorted after hearing her reply. I see. Ha ha ha. Well, nothing much. We're just doing some simulations and a few sparrings. Kuki looked at everyone's reactions feeling unrest. NN. Is that so? Closing square bracket. Yu's replies make things more awkward. It's obvious that she would rather do something else than talk with them. The training starts with Kuzuli's urging. This was also her consideration to the unbearable mood. Nothing special happened. They normally do their training and sparrings, but because a high-class beauty were watching, most of the boys were filled with spirit. Kuki in particular fight 3 instructors simultaneously. He's completely overpowering them with his holy sword, but you notice there's something wrong about it. Yu was also curious to their firepower since Hajime told her that his classmates were overpowered, but to her disappointment, they wasn't really of what she's expecting. When she thought it really carefully, Hajime was a synergist, a non-combat job, so of course in general, his classmates was pretty overpowered. Anosa. Yu-san, you're a mage, right? Maybe you'll be interested on magics. Kaori said. She's standing next to you, also watching the sparring between Kuki and the 3 night instructors. NN. Yu nodded and walked before Kaori to where the mage were gathering. She obviously lost her interest. Kaori followed after her, feeling a little nervous. She's actually on a standby in case someone gets injured. She felt uneasy for leaving her duties. The area for mages to practice wasn't really that far from the rest. There's a lot of target practice from the distance. Mage staves and mana potions were on the table in front of them. Others who uses long-range weapons also joined them, more likely to train their accuracy. Nana, Hydrosophist, Tamai, Cutlassier, Shimizu, Dark Mage, Namora, Illusionist, Teiko, Whip Master, and Yuka, Acrobat, was very active. For some reason they were much more lively and enthusiastic. Probably, learning Hajime's survival revitalized their spirit, or maybe because they have a lot of catching to do. Oh, Yu-san. You came to watch us, huh? Well, keep your eyes on this. Nakano, who spotted Yu, along with Kaori, declared with a huff. He take position excessively and start chanting in a loud voice. O God of flame, give me power. And synchronized your strength through my desire. To put those who opposed you in fire. And protect those who's on dire. ... Flame strike. A flame came out from Nakano's staff akin to a flamethrower, and used it to destroy 5 of the adjacent target practiced together. ... He just casted an intermediate spell 5 times faster than an average kingdom's mage. The instructors looked at Nakano in admiration. Even Saito, his friend, who had already seen it, praised him wholeheartedly, but he himself also improved in the past few weeks. He showed off his skills and power, which also earned everyone's admiration. Tortu's residents hold these kids on high regard for their skills and power, except for you, of course. Kuki's group finished their sparring session and went to the mage group to also observe their progress. Judging from their breathing and a few scratches that could be seen on their body and armor, they too has it hard, but they looked proud of it. Nice. Good work, everyone. With this, our fight against demons will be a piece of cake. Especially Yuka's group over there. I know there's a lot of catching to do, but I saw your determination, I must say. ... I'm impressed. Kuki praised everyone wholeheartedly. Some of the girls who heard his comment blushed and smiled faintly. The boys hugged and praised each other's happily. Shizuku and Kaori, who was standing next to Yu, also smiled warmly seeing everyone's progress, but when they looked at Yu's direction, she was looking at everyone coldly. Kaori and Shizuku thought that she'd definitely be surprised considering everyone was much more powerful than the residents of this world. Yu was annoyed on everyone. She knows that she shouldn't be, but she's mad at Hajime's classmates. After recalling all of Hajime and Shizuku's story about how they treat Hajime, she thought on how they can't share this moment with him and decided to abandon him all alone. Yu was filled nothing but hatred. Anosa. Yu-san, how about you give it a try too? I'm curious of what you can do. I'm sure everyone share the same thought. Kaori said nervously. Opening square bracket ... NN. Yu stepped forward in front of everyone. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at Yu interestingly. Some were chuckling because of how cute her childlike appearance. They weren't really expecting something big since she's a Tortu's resident, but they really want to see her impressions doing her best. Silence overruled the place, waiting for what this beauty can do. ... Yu raised a hand and snapped her fingers. 5 spells materialized around her. Ice Spear, Stone needles, zephyr, flame strike, and light javelin were casted all at the same time. Everyone were dumbfounded on what they were seeing right now. You had casted all of the spells they used with a snap without chanting or any visible magic circle. ... They all watch on how almost half of the training ground gets destroyed with their mouth gaping open. You snap her fingers again and a barrier was deployed protecting her from the debris. Suzuhu was shocked as everyone else snapped back to reality after seeing you cast her specialty nonchalantly, and she hurriedly casted her own barrier to protect everyone, with chanting of course. You turned and stared at everyone's dumbfounded reaction. Inside those sleepy-looking unblinking eyes, something was there that couldn't be touched were lurking. Everyone snapped back to reality and they all rushed to use side throwing tons of questions excitedly. The magic department was full of curiosity. There's no such being that could cast without chanting or using a magic circle existed throughout the history of Tortus. On the other side, the students was full of excitement, since none of them weren't really aware of this world's lore. Nobody bothered to question her identity, they just keep asking on how did she done it. Having a strong ally like this increased everyone's fighting spirit, even the knights who wasn't really good at magics were impressed. Since you wasn't answering any of the questions about her identity from the mage instructors, they throw it on the back of their mind and decided to be happy about this discovery. That was pretty good. You did well you. Kuki smiled faintly and walked toward you. For some reason he stretched out his hand and tried to reach for Yu's head. He's about to give her a head pat, but you slapped it away strongly. The cheering was interrupted and an awkward silence descended. They all stared at Kuki like he's an idiot, and even Shizuku also stared at Kuki's idiocy. She massaged her temples, walked next to Kuki and whispered, "What are trying to do?" But because of the silence that even a pin drop could be heard, everyone also heard what Shizuku says, and based on her tone, she's quite angry. And no. I thought she likes getting head pat. Nagumo always do it to her, right? Kuki said nervously. Are you stupid? Because she's his girlfriend. What makes you think it's fine to do it just because Nagumo-kun do it, huh? What if Nagumo-kun saw you? Shizuku says in a low voice, but still everyone could hear it. It seems she herself weren't aware that everyone heard her, probably cause of her anger reaching a tipping point. See, calm down. It's not like I'm gonna steal her. Closing square bracket. In your dreams. Do you really think you have a chance? Closing square bracket. Kuki averted his gaze away from Shizuku, but he caught sight of you looking at her hand she used to slap away his hand, in disgust. She's wiping it thoroughly with handkerchief, like he has a disease that might spread through contact. After she finished wiping her hand, she burned the hanky and looked at Kuki in anger and disgust. Opening square bracket ... Try that again, and you'll be the one I'll turn into ash next. You threatened. She left the training ground that was half destroyed. Her mood obviously wasn't good, so they fearfully make a way for her by stepping at the sides, away from her as possible. An unbearable silence was left lingering around on the entire area. They were all looking at the direction where you had gone through. They returned to their senses and looked at Kuki disapprovingly. Even the dense Kuki can't bear the atmosphere he brought and tried to clear it away. Guys, don't look at me like that. I was just trying to be nice. She's our comrade. There's no harm to it, right? Kuki said. His face was twitching non-stop and he's struggling keeping his smile on. Number. Kuki-kun. You shouldn't had done that. What if Hajime-kun saw you? Kaori says angrily. Even though she hates you, she won't overlook this kind of behavior, and she definitely wouldn't want to see Hajime gets angry. Kuki, I'm warning you. Don't act that like to you-san in front of Nagumo-kun, okay? Shizuku says in serious tone. Like I said, relax. Nagumo can't do anything about it. In fact, I could protect you way better than him. Kuki truly believes that he hadn't done anything wrong. Everyone was too dumbfounded to reprimand Kuki, but even if they do, he definitely wouldn't understand. Even his childhood pride gave up on him and did some mental note to never let Hajime know about it. The training was finished early because of the unbearable atmosphere and they all returned to their own rooms to fix themselves up. It's almost lunch anyway. Noon. Lunchtime. Everyone was awkwardly enjoying their meal. They sometimes divert their topic about their training progress, but because it just happened recently they can't avoid to talk about what had just occurred. It's fine. It's fine. Yu-san probably knows everything about Nagumo-kun, so that might include his reputation to us. Suzu thought it will take time, but Suzu's sure we will get along eventually. Suzu's optimistic opinion seems out of place, but that helps improve the mood a little. Why yeah. But just in case, I'll talk to her and apologize later. Kuki said with an awkward smile. No you don't. You might do something stupid again, so you can't get near her, okay. Shizuku slammed the table and talked to Kuki angrily. It's fine. I don't really understand why Yu-san gets mad at Kuki but, haha I mean, no girls could resist him, right? Ryutaro clasped Kuki's shoulder, while trying to cheer him up. You too Ryutaro. You morons. Don't get near at Yu-san, huh? Let's make it that every boys were forbidden on approaching her, are we clear? Shizuku was definitely mad at Kuki's earlier actions. Out of everyone here, she's the only one who's close to you enough that she won't be hostile when she approached her. Plus it seems Shizuku was really concerned to you so it's reasonable. Most of the boys protested saying, no way. Don't be like that Yagashi-san. And, you don't have to go that far. Could be heard. Shizuku. Don't be like that, she's our comrade you know. It's only natural to get along. Kuki also protested. Shut up. All of you. Shut up. I could read all of you like an open book. Don't make me repeat myself or I'll slice all of you to pieces. Shizuku shouted. Silence overruled the room. Everyone held their tongue on Shizuku's serious tone. Shizuku looked at everyone, confirming that all of them were listening. She cleared her throat and speaks. I'll talk to her in dinner, and maybe apologize while I'm on it. I had a conversation with her once and she'll definitely listen to what I would say, at least. Any questions? Kaori raised a hand immediately after Shizuku's condescending act. Shizuku-chan they will definitely won't join us on dinner. Closing square bracket. I know. That's why I will have my dinner on their room. Shizuku said calmly. Wah. You mean Hajime-kun's room? Kaori said. She's obviously shaken. Sigh. Yes. Shizuku already sensed what Kaori's thinking and she let out an exasperated sigh. Then. You don't mind if I tag along right? I mean, I want to talk with Hajime-kun, we didn't get a chance to talk to him today, and there's a lot of stuffs I need to ask, and also Meld-san ordered us to not approach them alone, so. Kaori looked at Shizuku with puppy-looking eyes, how sly. Then, let me join too. I want to talk to him too. Maybe I could thank him properly this time. Yuka raised her voice, she said the last part in a soft voice. Nana and Teiko, who was sitting next to her, heard her and they also suggested to join them. Then, Suzu too. Suzu wants to be friend with Yu-san. He. Suzu says in a low voice. It seems her personality won't allow that someone hated her. In the end, every girls in class will join Shizuku, but since Shizuku herself declared that only the boys weren't allowed, she can't really refuse everyone. Then it's decided. I'll try asking Lily about it so we can talk comfortably, but remember, try not to make Yu-san mad, okay? Shizuku said and left. She already finished her lunch after all. Kaori, who hadn't touched her food even once, followed up after Shizuku, and the rest of the students continued eating silently. In a room where there was no light could be found, a small girl was standing, looking on the heavens with a lonely expression. Her long blonde hair was waving along with her white negligee that almost transparent. One might question if was it really fine for a girl her age should be wearing a delicate clothing like that. Her cute little hand was on the top of the window railing, doing nothing but staring at the moon and enjoying the gentle breeze. Suddenly she heard a knock on the door and her mood were ruined. Sensing who was behind it, the girl let out an exasperated sigh. She walked to the door and reluctantly opened it. There's literally lots of people in front of her. Maids whose cheeks were red and had eyes full of expectations, Hajime's girl classmates that she didn't bother remembering even their names, Kaori and Shizuku, and the princess, Liliana. They all wearing a smile with a different meaning behind it, some were nervous and others seems excited. They were about to greet the person who opened the door, but all of them stiffened and after that blushed red until smoke was rising on their head. Because right now, a goddess were in front of them whose underwear were almost visible because of how transparent her negligee was. Good evening Yu-san. Liliana's composure was nowhere to be found, but it's quite commendable that she managed to greet the beauty in front of her. Really, what a good girl. Right now everyone, girls only, was here to have dinner on Hajime and Yu's room. It's obvious how the maids were carrying chairs and tables, while the students carried their own food. Nobody really informed you about this, and their little fait accompli annoyed her. Sensing her mood, Shizuku hurriedly explained the situation to Yu in desperate voice. Anosa, Yu-san. Sorry about this unexpected visit. We know you Nagumo-kun and you will not join us on dinner, so I had no choice but to join you instead. But everyone here insisted to join, so. Sorry again. Shizuku was red as a tomato. She talked to you with apologetic face. The soup on her tray already spilled because of how her hand keeps shaking nonstop. Yu sighed and opened the door widely, indicating for them to come in. The maids entered first with their minds still blank from seeing Yu in her negligee. They set up the tables and chairs autonomously and left with saying anything. It feels like they're not themselves anymore. Liliana and the students entered the room without complaints. They too feels like they want to leave, but since they chose this, they had no choice but to go with it. This room was the same as the rest. There's only 2 chairs, a desk, a bed and a closet, but for some reason, the room itself was much calmer than the rest. The tension building up inside their body left and they all breathed out comfortably. Yu grabbed an orb-shaped crystal and brought it to the center of the tables, which was arranged to form a long table. The food was set and they all sat up on their own chair. Yu sat on the end while Liliana found herself on the opposite side. The other students also takes their seats, while Kaori and Shizuku specifically chose the seats closest to Yu. The tension returned again, but because of how dark it was, everyone's expressions were hidden. It's a blessing in disguise, but not until a golden mana flowed from Yu to the orb she set up earlier. The room was lightened, and it was beautiful. Innumerable stars was on the ceiling, a beautiful aurora on walls, and there's also meteor shower on the other side. The fact that they are still isolated on a room makes things more amazing, cause of the feeling that they could reach it with their own hand. It's beautiful. What is this, Yu-san? It feels like I'm on Earth again, ha ha ha. Shizuku said while reaching for the faraway stars with her hand. I only saw this on TV, but now, even it's artificial, it feels so real. Kaori followed up. Nay, Yu-san, where did you get this? Suzu didn't know the palace have one of this. Suzu's excited voice echoed throughout the room. That's because we don't. It's also my first time seeing this. Such beauty. It makes me want to see the real thing. Liliana's gaze were wandering through the whole room with deep interest. Hajime gave it to me. When we were on our way outside, we only have green glowstone as a light source when we're resting. It's fine for me, but it seems Hajime gets fed up with it and created this. He called this Zundan. After that he starts telling me about stars and lots of stuffs I don't really understand, but it was fun. Yu smiled faintly from recalling that memory. Hajime smiled a lot on that time. The longing on his eyes were something that Yu didn't miss. Of course that was fun. Kaori said, and smiled sadly after looking at Yu's expression. Now let's start. Well then, what did you came here for? Yu said in serious tone. The air around her changed and she's omitting dominating aura. The truth was, I just want to apologize about earlier. Kuki didn't mean any harm. Trust me, I've been with him for so long, and I know how his brain works. Shizuku started talking in panic. The reality that Yu was still in her negligee fueled her uneasiness, and a faint blush were still pasted on her face. I know that. Yu and Hajime already told a lot of stories about that guy, so I expect as much. Yu started eating with an elegant motion. Liliana saw that and became curious about Yu's identity. Her cheeks were red though. But still, his actions was quite repulsive, even though she already had Yu Shizuku. Acting like that in front of Yu was so, but this world does tolerate polygamy. Suddenly, Shizuku shot out of her seat in flustered and said. Opening square bracket exclamation mark question mark. Www, what are you saying, Yu-san? TTT, there's no way I belong to him. Shizuku blushed in embarrassment. Even the other girls blushed on the idea that Shizuku and Kuki were lovers. Even in Japan there's a rumors about the two of them going out together. Why you-san? Actually Kuki-kun is our childhood friend. When I met Shizuku-chan, she's already with Kuki-kun. So. Kaori talked on Shizuku's stead. Shizuki glanced at her friend in gratitude. I'm just joking though. So is there anyone you like? Shizuku. You chuckled a little while asking. There's a lot of stuffs I need to take priority. So that's completely out of my mind for now. We need to focus on the incoming war against demons so we can go home already, and my friend's safety is far more important. Closing square bracket. Opening square bracket . Going home huh? Did you already had a method? You stared at everyone. This was Hajime's greatest desire, so she thought that she might help to grant it no matter what. Actually, Ishtar-san said that Ahito, the god of this world who summoned us, had summoned us on a sole purpose, defeating the demons. Amanogawa-san conclude that by defeating the demons, we'll be able to go home. Eri says nervously. Everyone were trying there to eat their dinner on this solemn atmosphere, but looking at their untouched food speak clearly how nervous they're. And the basis for that? Yu's eyes shined in curiosity. Ishtar-san said that Ahito might grant that if we succeed, so. Eri averted her eyes away from Yu who looked disappointed. So there's no guarantee huh? Yu sighed. Yu-san that's rude for our god. You'll be branded as heretic you know. Liliana said in concern, but it sounds like she's threatening you. Opening square bracket . Will you? Yu stared at Liliana coldly. Liliana jerked and averted her gaze. The cold sweat on her face reflected the light coming from the orb. Why are you even here in the first place? Princess. Closing square bracket. I just want to confirm something. Is it true that you casted spells without chanting, a magic circle, or even a help from any artifacts? Closing square bracket. And, is that all? Liliana jerked again. You could see that she has a lot of questions on her mind. Actually since you've watched their training, Kuki-san was dying to know about your opinion. I didn't know why is that but he said that you're the reason for Nagumo-san's survival, so. Closing square bracket. That guy. Sigh. To be honest it's like all of you were just playing. Everyone jerked at Yu's insult. They looked at her and was about to protest but Yu continued. Most of you lacked focus, it's like you were just showing off, but I have to admit, you're strong. Everyone smiled at Yu's compliment, but that smiled crooked a little cause they knew themselves that a part of what she says was true. But, none of you will last down there, in the abyss. Everyone's smiles froze in shock, but they tilt their head and looked at Yu in confusion. Yu-san. What is abyss? Suzu asks. Opening square bracket . That's what Hajime dubbed the Great Orcus Labyrinth. It's dark, cold, and infested with a lot of monsters, hell at its finest. Yu's eyes suddenly filled with sadness. Same goes for everyone in the room. They start imagining how much suffering Hajime had to endure, for him to describe that place as hell. Oh, by the way, where's Hajime-kun? Kaori asks. Opening square bracket . Like I said, he's studying. Closing square bracket. Still, so he's on the library huh? I'm gonna go check on him. Kaori stand on her seat but an overwhelming aura assaulted her. Her legs give up and she's on her chair again. I just said he's studying right. Are you planning on disturbing him? Yu looked at Kaori coldly. She used dark magic to create a pseudo-intimidate. Shizuku on the other side looked at Kaori in concern, but she paid her no mind and decided to divert the topic. The talk won't progress if she had to console her right here right now. Yu-san, what do you mean that we won't last there? We already cleared until 75th floor, you know. Closing square bracket. Opening square bracket . The monsters on lower levels was much stronger, and the traps was much more deadlier. Everyone gulped in nervousness on Yu's description. Then, how did you found Nagumo-kun? Suzu asks. I didn't found him. He found me. Yu's eyes contained happiness from recalling that fateful meeting. Everyone stared in curiosity and Kaori started asking. Opening square bracket . How? Closing square bracket . Yu stared at the ceiling and started recalling her precious memory with Hajime. Opening square bracket . I was trapped in a dark room for who knows how long, but suddenly I heard a faint sound. Bang. Bang. Ahead of my gaze a light pop out. A door was opened and a white-haired man with one arm was standing there, looking at my direction warily. Opening square bracket dot dot dot. I find it funny how he tried to abandon me though. You chuckled. He did what? Everyone asked in surprised, but you ignored them and continued. I start begging him for salvation, but he didn't listen and the door was closing bit by bit. For some reason I can't remember any of what I said, maybe because of how desperate I am, but suddenly the door was opened once more, and he started walking towards me. He's saying something but throughout it all I'm captured with his eyes and cannot even reply properly. Opening square bracket dot dot dot. My heart at that time beats so fast, and a warm feeling starts spreading through my whole body. So I can't really remember why was he scolding me. Closing square bracket. He did what? Everyone asked in surprised again. After calming my pounding heart, I start talking about myself. At that time I could just tell him a made-up story so he can save me. However, such thought never emerged even just for a bit on me at that time. I merely told him everything wishing for him to know about me. What did you told him, you san? Liliana asks. Everyone too stared at you full of curiosity. You finds it funny on how Liliana would take advantage of this situation. Opening square bracket dot dot dot. A trade secret. You said. Everyone's excitement died down, and you continues her story. After finishing my story, I pleaded to him with my gaze full of worries. Him abandoning was the last thing I wanted. I would rather be imprisoned for eternity than losing a sight of him. I'm sure if he abandoned me, this trivial meeting will vanish from his memory completely. But suddenly, a crimson light surged out from him. Opening square bracket dot dot dot. I surely won't forget the color of his mana at that time. It's striking and quite powerful. It undulate, spreading in ripples, shining brilliantly, bewitching me without any question. Yu's cheeks dyed crimson red from recalling that memory of hers. But it should be light blue, right? Yuka questioned. Oh. Right. You haven't seen him use magic, Shizuku replied. I was stunned by its beauty, added on how close he was to me, my heart beats loudly that he might hear it. Then finally I'm freed. I touched his only hand holding some kind of container with unknown liquid on it, and express my utmost gratitude wholeheartedly. Thank you. Closing square bracket. His face was etched in surprise, but that expression transformed into something I wouldn't forgotten. He smiled. In a short time we'd been together, I think I'd managed to change something to him. You smiled. That smile was so radiant that it lightened the room on its own. I asked for his name, which is Nagumo Hajime, and he asked for mine. The moment I was freed, I promised to myself that I will live for him and him alone. That's why I asked for one. I want to be reborn. He said. I remind him the moon, when how I shined in the night sky from when I was inside the darkness, I was named you. Closing square bracket. Everyone blushed on sugary sweet atmosphere coming out from you. Such story was a girl their age what always wanted, especially Liliana. And that's how I met Hajime. We fight side by side until the end. Only to grant his greatest wish. Closing square bracket. Yu's expression was warm, filled with immeasurable joy, but suddenly, it turned sullen. Everyone gulped unconsciously from the sudden change and they all fixed their sitting posture. Yu muttered, now then. Closing square bracket dot. Opening square bracket dot dot dot. What's everyone's impressions on Hajime anyway? Closing square bracket. The room became silent. Kaori also fell silent. She seems thinking the best way to describe him. Yu sighed and spoke in a voice full of understanding. You don't have to be afraid of me, because I'm the one asking though. Closing square bracket. Everyone looked at each other in slight hesitation. Suzu talked first. She thought that it might ease everyone else so that they could express what on their mind properly. Actually, Nagumo-kun isn't really a great guy. Gulped W. Wait. That came wrong. How do Suzu say this? Ito. Suzu hold on her head, racking her brain for the best answer. Yu sighed again and said, like I said. You don't have to hold back. Closing square bracket. Sanano. Yosh. Breath, like I said, he isn't that great. He's lazy, his grades were always on average, and he's unathletic. Suzu gulped. Nana followed up after wavering for a few seconds. Yeah, Nagumaki really was your average guy. Most of our teachers find his sleeping hobbit problematic. One time, before our last period teacher exits, he pranked him and we all left him then and there. Ha ha ha, she laughed weakly to wash away her fears. So that's why he's acting weird on that day, huh? He's embarrassed. He, Kaori chuckled after recalling how cute Hajime's expression was when he greeted everyone back. And it's quite hilarious how he clung on Meld-san like a koala when those three were chasing him. Like, ha ha ha. Takeo shouted. Everyone also remembered that day and they tried holding back their laughter. How about his first monster outside the capital, was that dog-size rat? Ah. He swung his sword like a madman cause those rats looked like they had rabies. Everyone laughed on recalling that, even you seems having fun imagining that kind of Hajime, which helps soften the mood. So I find it weird, on how he sacrificed himself without a second thought. I mean considering on how we treated him. I guess we didn't deserve it. Yuka said, even though everyone were laughing her guilty expression didn't change. Their laughter died down and their expression returned to the former. That's how he'd always been. That's why I'm surprised that he tried to abandon Yu-san. I mean, there's no way he would do something like that. Kaori says with a hint of jealousy on her tone, but she shifted emotion and smiled warmly from recalling the first time she saw him. Oh, I just noticed. What do you mean by his greatest wish, Yu-san? Kaori stated in curiosity. Yu looked at Kaori, hesitates, and said, I can't tell you yet. Closing square bracket. And why is that? Kaori finds it irritating that Yu hides a lot of stuffs to her own allies, that she unconsciously raised her voice. Yu looked at her with her usual deadpan stare and says in calm voice, I still need to confirm something. Closing square bracket. Kaori looked at her angrily. Everyone seems curious too, though Yu was still unperturbed, but she spoke regardless. Opening square bracket. Halfway through the abyss with Hajime, I gained my purpose. I wish to grant this one wish of mine. To return something he lost down there. Yu's eyes lit up with determination, she looked at her own hand and clenched her fist tightly. His arm. His eye. Someone said in confusion. Yu closed her eyes and muttered. His humanity. Closing square bracket. Everyone gasped. Kaori, Liliana and Shizuku kinda had the idea of what Yu was saying. For Yuka's group who hadn't spent much time with Hajime yet since their reunion, only brought confusion on their side. Yuaki, what do you mean by that? Nana asks. I just want to give you some nicknames here so. Hey. Winking face, purro. Opening square bracket. You'll understand soon. Yu said after finishing her meal. You still hadn't give clear answers to any of our questions. What is Hajime's wish? What is it that you had to confirm? And why are you hiding your identity to us? Now, answer US. Kaori shot out of her seat and leaned toward Yu. I don't have the obligation to answer your questions. Just because Hajime ignored it, doesn't mean I already forgive you all for betraying him. Yu said in low voice and looked coldly at everyone. Everyone except Shizuku were shocked at this revelation. They want to deny Yu's accusations, but because of her tone and how angry she looked they had no choice but to hold their tongue. But Kaori seems out of herself right now. She stared at Yu angrily regardless from this revelation. She herself knows the truth about Hajime's accident, but just like Shizuku, she didn't have the evidence to condemn someone. Why though? If you just tell me I could find a way to help. There's a limit on being obstinate, you know. Closing square bracket. Yu stand on her seat and pointed her hand on Kaori. Others reacted and stand on their own seat in panic. Shizuku specifically, already expected this might happen but she still reacted too late to stop Kaori. She held the hilt of her sheathed sword, planning to disarm Yu before she hurts her best friend, but Yu's attention wasn't on Kaori anymore, she was staring outside the window with a happy expression. Opening square bracket. You can leave now. Closing square bracket. What? But you haven't answered yet. Kaori shouted. Yu looked at her coldly and muttered. Then die. Closing square bracket. Before a magic materialize out of thin air, Shizuku dragged Kaori away from Yu and apologized repeatedly. Everyone also stepped away from her out of fear, but before they left, Yuka asked Yu, regardless of fear she felt. Then Yu-san, can you please answer this question before we leave? Closing square bracket. Yu's angry gaze turned to Yuka. Do you think Nagumo hates us? Everyone's eyes opened wide on Yuka's question. They all stared at Yu in curiosity. None of them really expects her to answer, looking how angry she was right now. Opening square bracket ... No. Surprisingly Yu answered, but she wasn't done yet. She pointed her index finger to Kaori and said in irritation, but you're an exception. Closing square bracket. Kaori feels like she wants to cry right now. Everyone stared at her worriedly, but because of the unstable atmosphere right now, they left without complaints. The room was silent again. Yu sighed in exhaustion and turned her gaze outside the window with a smile on her face. A man was there looking at her warmly while dangling out the window. Okarinasai, Hajime. Closing square bracket.